I'm Carole Taylor. On this edition of Journal, we take a close look at the challenges mayors face every minute of the day. There's no such thing as a timeout when you're in that job. It's always surprised me when I hear our governments described in this way. Most important, federal, next, provincial, and then the municipal. When I served in Vancouver's municipal government, I was often asked, when are you going to run provincially or federally? As if that must be the goal. It was never my aspiration, even though for other reasons I did eventually serve provincially. But municipal governments are closest to the people they serve. They know what the issues are. Constituents can visit you in your office. They can appear in person to state their concerns before council, whether it's about potholes, the symphony, or supportive housing. And mayors are the pointy end of that stick. In our minds, they're the ones responsible for a housing crisis, crime in the streets, fentanyl deaths, not enough density, too much density, too few bike lanes, too many bike lanes. In many ways, it's a thankless job. But when done well, the good mayors become our voice on the public stage. Mayor Mike Hurley, Burnaby, is certainly in the spotlight these days. Elected in 2018 as an independent, he was re-elected in 2022 by acclamation, a strong vote of confidence. And as if being in charge of this bustling, well-run, growing municipality were not enough, Mayor Hurley has recently taken on the role of chair of the Metro Vancouver Regional District. It's a tense time when the overdue, over-budget wastewater plant fills the headlines. Pretty brave. Back with the mayor after this break. Mayor Hurley joins us now, and I have to say that I have tremendous respect for the job that all of our levels of government have to do, but municipalities mostly. And I look at the way you're getting bounced around these days, and so many of the problems you can't affect. They're being decided by other levels of government, but you have to deal with them. And for instance, I was very sad when you had to cancel your beautiful recreational center. And that was because of a change in provincial policy about amenities. Can you explain what happened there?
Well, there's a couple of reasons, and that is one of them. One of them is that the budget went way over in any case, and I didn't see the value in dry space costing. I can understand swimming pools and ice rinks costing a certain amount of money, but for gymnasiums and just dry space, I felt that it was too much money, $240 million. But the second part of that is also thinking about where the money's coming from. And we've had a very successful policy in Burnaby of density bonusing, which was developers got extra bonusing in our extra density on our town centers they bought it. And we used that money to build our things that we need, like rec centers and infrastructure. Now the provincial government completely changed that model and said, you can't do that anymore. Now you have to use ACCs. ACCs is a new thing that the provincial provinces brought in. And so we have to wait and see how that's all going to work out.
But it sure affects the decisions you make, and because infrastructure and amenities are an important part of why Burnaby works.
Right.
And if one of those pieces is taken away, the other thing for infrastructure is that, again, at the federal government level, we've got immigration that's just surprised all of us at how many people are coming in. And then you've got the provincial government saying to you as a municipality, oh, and I want you to do more density.
Yeah.
How do you make that work?
Well, we don't. And I've done figures, had my engineering group do figures on residential areas that now they're saying we can do 4 and 6 units on every residential lot. Now, that's well and good, except that we don't have the infrastructure to support that. When we did our planning, we planned our town centers, as you've seen, for high density around SkyTrain station. And we put in the infrastructure that was needed to manage that growth. And developers helped to pay for that, of course. Now, residential areas take up a large portion of land in the city. So we have come up with a dollar figure for every 100 meters of infrastructure that we have to change. I'm talking about below ground infrastructure, pipes and water pipes, sewer pipes, and anything else that needs to go in the ground. It's $1 million for every 100 meters. So that's adds up very, very quickly when you're looking at the number of streets in Burnaby. And our planning department now has no control over where that's going to happen. It can happen in areas of our city. The province has said, go ahead, you can do it, and there's nothing we can do about it.
So how do you feel about the province coming in? Because, zoning used to be just a municipal decision, and all of a sudden, a lot of it's been taken out of your hands.
It's certainly been the biggest change in that, I think, possibly in BC's history. It was a big, big step to make a one-size-fits-all. And I think in Burnaby, we were doing our fair share of density. I think most people would agree with that, if you look at our town centers and how we've grown. And now we're being told, we're almost getting punished for our success. Now you need to grow it bigger and more. So,
weren't you on their bad boy list?
No, I never made the bad boy list yet. But who knows? Who knows what the criteria even is for that? I mean, I totally understand the growth and that we need to densify. We've always got that in Burnaby, and I understand what they're trying to do. But I just think that the one-size-fits-all model does not work, and I think you should be rewarding people for doing it well, not punishing them. And if we look at other cities, at Coquitlam, North Van City, I mean, they've really stepped up to meet the needs with density and planned. I mean, our planning, we're doing an OCP right now.
OCP?
OCP is how our city's governed, or how our city's going to develop in the future. Community plan, or official community plan. So we've gone through that. It's about a 4-year process. And we were halfway through it when the government brought down all these new rules.
So that changes everything.
And so it changes everything and adds in a tremendous amount of work to our staff, which is now focused on their changes rather than doing the real changes that we need. So,
are you getting any indication that they're listening? Because you're not the only municipality that's been concerned about this. Do you think they might back off this in any way?
No, I don't think so. I think the real signal was sent. They brought in the same minister and put them in housing, and then also put the same minister in charge of municipalities. So I think the signal was very clear that they felt their direction was correct. I don't think so, and housing has really slowed down since all this has happened.
No, that's an irony.
As a result, because it created more uncertainty within the market. The one thing that developers always liked about Burnaby, certainty was there. They knew the rules. They might not like them all the time, but they knew the rules. It was consistent, and they knew the goalposts.
And you could move them through fairly quickly in the process at that point.
And we have, within our single-family lots now, we have speeded up those applications that meet all the criteria. That's the key. Speeded up those applications that meet the criteria by 67%. So we've been really doing our work. If your single-family home now meets the criteria, you bring it in, it can be through the process in 6 weeks. So we've really been trying to do our work, but unfortunately, when other levels of government step in my opinion, where they have no expertise, they should stick to doing, what they do best, and leave municipalities do a very good job.
When you say infrastructure, I'm sure people just sort of go like this, but I was at a panel session that you were at, and you made it come to life. You said, there's going to be a lot more toilets flushing.
Yep, exactly.
So these are essential components of a livable city.
Well, and for the health and well-being of communities, those have to be done very, very well. I mean, if we think about why, these plants were built in the first place to manage wastewater, that was because of disease within the cities. That was why those were built, to really be a key part of the health system.
How did you feel about a mayor of another city coming out and saying that they're not going to take any more net new supportive housing because the rest of the province isn't doing their share?
Well, there's many pieces to that, and I understand the frustration of a mayor who's trying to deal with all the issues that they're dealing with. I understand that frustration. But what comes with that is, like, we get very little services in Burnaby from Fraser Health and others to assist us with those in need in the city. And we have our share of homeless too, and share of unhoused, unfortunately. But we're not getting the help we need when it comes to mental health, when it comes to addictions, and when it comes to on-the-street workers that are needed. We're now being forced to hire workers to deal with those issues that are not really municipal issues at heart. We do them because they're the right thing to do.
And so these are issues that land on your doorstep, and you're the chief in charge, and so everyone looks to you. And one thing that I'd like to discuss with you a little bit more is that, as if this wasn't enough work, you've decided to take on chair of Metro Vancouver, and Metro Vancouver, of course, as we all know, has been in the news quite a bit lately. So we'll take a break and we'll continue this discussion. Oh boy, Metro Vancouver has been in the news a lot lately. The wastewater treatment center, of course, and then the whole structure, governance, and everything that's going on there as a regional authority. Why on earth did you take on chair?
Well, I took it on because I realized the importance and the role that Metro Vancouver plays within the region. So it's important that Metro Vancouver is successful and is recognized for what it is. I don't think too many people understand the monster that Metro Vancouver actually is. It's a $3.25 billion a year organization. It's at its core, it manages water, the cleanest water in the world, that supplied 1 billion liters of water a day, supplied by Metro Vancouver. And then it's wastewater services, which manages 1.2 billion liters of wastewater every day. So just think of the importance of that by itself. And then you get on to solid waste, those would be deemed to be the core of Metro Vancouver. We also do a wonderful job in providing affordable housing at a very reasonable price, which is self-managed within Metro Vancouver. It's only subsidized by $5 million a year. And there's 10,000 people living in those homes.
So there are lots of voices complaining about different aspects of what's been going on in Metro Vancouver. I expect it's just because the spotlight's now on and everybody's paying attention. But when I was on it, it used to be called the GVRD, Greater Vancouver Regional District. There's almost a built-in bit of dysfunction that I saw at that time, and that is every municipality, city, they all put their reps on the board, and then the board is supposed to be looking at the region as a whole. And I remember being on the hospital committee at one point, and we had to prioritize which hospitals where. Do you think anyone would vote for anything except their own district? No, they didn't. And so Richmond would vote for Richmond and North Van for North Van. And so that was always a struggle to get people to, carry their interests from their local areas, but then look bigger.
And I'll be honest, that's still a challenge. And I think that's always a challenge because people will first and foremost look at their home. But I have to say, since I've been there 6 years now, the vast majority of times people do a pretty good job of looking at the big picture. Not saying it's all the time, and I'm not saying Metro Vancouver's perfect. Not trying to say that at all. But I will say that the 41 people sitting around that table, and just think of it managing that, is, I would say 95% of the time, really get the decisions in a really good manner.
So what's the go forward here? Because I know that you've now approached the provincial government and asked them if they would work with you to do a review of the governance.
Yep.
So any ideas in your mind about what should be fixed or changed?
Well, I never like to get ahead of a review because if I say something, people will say, well, that's where we're going, and you're prejudging it, and it's not independent. So I don't like to get ahead of those. But I think best practice for any organization should be every number of years to have a look at your governance, make sure it's being done well and done efficiently, and if there can be new lessons learned that could maybe ask you to change things. Now, most of that governance, or much of the governance, is owned by the provincial government, so it would be impossible for us to go through a real governance review without the province being involved. Now, how much they're going to get involved, we'll wait and see, but they have accepted my invitation to be part of the governance review, which I think will be a very interesting process, and we'll hire an outside company that will guide those talks and bring best practices to the table, because I think it's always important that we know we're having to look within to make sure we're doing things well and efficiently. And things change over time. Some things that were acceptable in 2007, when I think was the last real governance review, a lot has changed since 2007.
So what's your response to the hot button issues? So salaries, the top ups that the politicians receive, the number of meetings? And...
Well, much has been made of the double meeting fee. In my 6 years in Metro Vancouver, I can only recall, and I've gone through that double meeting fee actually happening once in 6 years. So, people like to go to the extremes and everything when they look at things. Now, that is something that I believe could be looked at, is the double meeting fee, for sure. But I'll give you an example of what a Metro Vancouver meeting, and it's really 4 meetings because there's 4 different groups within Metro. The last Friday of every month. So on the Monday, you get a 900 to 1,200 page report that you have to go through. And if you're doing your job, going through it really well and being ready for that 4-hour meeting on Friday. You'll likely spend 6 hours going through that. You'll likely spend a couple hours with your expertise staff within your own city to look at different things. So for $530, which is the fee right now, I'm not saying that's the right fee or the wrong fee. We'll get to that as well. But I don't think those people are being overly paid. And remember, Metro Vancouver is completely separate from, my job as mayor of Burnaby, or a councillor's job in the mayor of Maple Ridge. So I don't think there's too many boards out there. Some people are suggesting it should be done for free. So, maybe that's something that can be looked at, but I'm not sure who's going to go.
I'm not sure you'd have a council left. One last word on the wastewater treatment plant. I saw your announcement that you've now got it back on track. You've got a new contractor. So we have to learn from our mistakes. When you look back at that whole process, how did it go from $700 million to almost $4 billion? What did you learn so that the next big infrastructure thing that comes along, you won't make the same mistake?
I have to be very careful because there's a $500 million lawsuit. So those are the needles I have to thread when I speak about this. And it's not to hide anything, it's just reality. And the lawyers will be listening. So the budget for that project was put in place in about 2013. This is 2024. We're in a completely different world. However, the contract was signed in 2017 with Acciona, who I believe was a $730 million contract at that time. Unfortunately, Acciona didn't deliver. It was a design build, so they were designing, they were building it. And that was, by the way, the federal government demanded that type of contract for them to put their $200 million into the pot for that wastewater treatment plant. Acciona unfortunately didn't deliver, and when we, in 2000, I wasn't around at those times, so I can't talk too much to that, but in 2021, when we brought in our expert panel, a panel of experts from around the industry that really know that stuff, they didn't feel that they could have faith in Acciona to deliver. And remember, Acciona came back 2019 and asked for a $300 million more for that project, and a couple of years later they come back and ask for more.
Well, I understand that you can't talk about the details, but it'll be important, really, when you go through that lawsuit and the whole process to see whether it's the design build that gets questioned or whether it's the experts who makes those decisions, because you're going to have a lot of big infrastructure around Metro Vancouver over the next few years, and we would like to do it a bit better, but...
Yes, and I can tell you Iona is the next big one, which has been proposed in a certain way, but since I became chair, I asked him to go back and look at a different way to deliver this.
Well, I wish you all sorts of luck, Mayor.
Yeah.
You've got a very challenging municipality and a challenging Metro Vancouver. Thank you for doing it.
Thank you very much for having me.
We'll be back in just a sec. Mayor Hurley is asking the provincial government to participate in a governance review of Metro Vancouver. And he's not the only voice of concern. Port Coquitlam Mayor Brad West has suggested a cut in pay for the directors, fewer meetings, and an independent look at core services. Others want a review of travel expenses. Changes are coming. Let me know your thoughts on YouTube. Till next time, I'm Carole Taylor.